Hi, this is Megan, and this is Downsizing for Seniors, the first YouTube channel dedicated specifically to the unique needs of seniors who are downsizing. In this video, we're going to cover one of the 8 biggest mistakes that most people make when they're downsizing, and that is monetize your downsize. We're going to talk about the money side of downsizing, what you can expect, and we're going to give you lots of pro tips on how to avoid the pitfalls that many people make when they're trying to monetize their downsize. So while some of the information in this channel is specific to seniors, a lot of it will apply to anyone who's downsizing. This one's probably about 50-50. No matter what your age, I'm super grateful that you've taken a few minutes of your day to watch this video. If you're new to YouTube, all the content is free. It's all free and you can watch it as many times as you'd like. So I worry when I have a client who says things like this. This is the top of the line. There's no better out there, and this one's hardly been used. This is an antique, so it's worth a lot of money. I have a friend who nearly gave everything away, but I don't want to do that. I want to sell everything. If I'm the first person to tell you that the resale market for used goods and furniture is soft, I apologize. But the resale market for used goods and furniture is soft. Please don't shoot the messenger. Wouldn't work by video anyway. Feel free to Google me, check out what I'm saying. There's tons of articles bemoaning the current resale market. It is a buyer's market, period. And if you're downsizing, you are a seller in a buyer's market. So let's talk about why it's a buyer's market. The simple answer is high supply, low demand. Correction, the supply isn't just high, it's super high. For the past 70 years, Americans' economy has been basically on an upward trajectory. We have been blessed by some of the best economic times ever seen in the history of mankind. But that blessing has had a backlash too. And we Americans don't just have a great quality of life, we have a great quantity too. The numbers are staggering. The US economy is 20 trillion, give or take. Consumer spending, that's what you, me, your kids, your neighbors, going about our daily lives, that spending accounts for nearly 70% of our economy. That's $13 trillion. Non-durable goods, things like groceries and clothing, they account for 1/4 of all consumer spending. And it's estimated that more than 18% of consumer spending is on non-essential items. That's nice talk for junk we don't need. Okay, the numbers are big, we can keep going on, but what does it mean for you and me, and why am I doing this as part of a downsizing video? Here's the reality. Almost half of all Americans consider their home to be at least somewhat cluttered. 1 in 7 of us have a room in our home that we cannot use. More than 70% say they should declutter to gain more room. 1 in 4 cannot fit any cars into a 2-car garage, and 1/3 of us can only get 1 car into that 2-car garage. We collectively, we Americans, we have great, big, abominable stuffed monsters fueled by an economy that has allowed us to buy and buy and buy and buy. There's other components too. Mass production and mass distribution. Add those two to the good financial times, and we've just had an explosion of goods. Why is there so much resale out there? Well, part of that is because we have 2 generations downsizing at the same time. There's a lot of reasons for this, but I'm gonna keep it simple. The first generation that's downsizing is the silent generation. Those Americans born between 1928 and 45 generally are considered to be very traditional and tend to stay in their homes and jobs for long periods of time. I'd say about 60 to 70% of our clients are from the silent generation currently. Next, we have the baby boomers, all 77 million of them, born between 46 and 64. Their lives have been catapulted by the economic and baby explosion following World War II. The first baby boomer turned 65 in 2011, and according to the AARP, 10,000 boomers turned 65 every day. Another way to say that, 65 boomers turned 65 years old every minute. Some call it the silver wave. For those who are a little more fatalistic, the silver tsunami. There are so many of them, and they're downsizing too. Simply put, it's a lot of people with a lot of stuff trying to sell in that resale market. So let's switch to the other side and let's talk about demand. The demand side is also really complicated. There are many factors. Unfortunately, it often gets boiled down to the millennials don't want anything. While there is some truth to that statement, it deserves a more in-depth explanation. And of course, it's not the whole story. As a whole, I find Americans are sympathetic about those who survived the Great Depression. Americans who lived through the Great Depression saved things and conserved in ways that later generations would not, and often found odd. But those later generations, the silent generation, the boomers, could easily explain any of those eccentricities with a simple, they survived the Great Depression. All strange behaviors are systematically removed with this single statement. And do you notice how we always say it that way? Survived the Great Depression. But we don't seem to have the same sympathy for the generation most impacted by the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009. While older generations, silent, boomer, Generation X, have largely been able to recoup the wealth they lost during the Great Recession, the result of the Great Recession on millennials has been a financial domino effect that has impacted every aspect of their lives. According to a report by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the millennials are at the greatest risk of becoming a lost generation for wealth accumulation. Think about that for a minute. They may never be as wealthy as other preceding generations. As a result, millennials are very conservative with their money. This has often led them to postpone many life milestones, including getting married and having families. And if you're not getting married and you're not having those kids, you don't need that big family-style house, and you don't need to fill it with furniture. Even if they wanted all the stuff that's being downsized by the silent generation and the boomers, they just don't have the space to absorb it all. There are other factors as well. Consider the changing role of women. I think most people, regardless of age, think it's a good thing that so many women are pursuing higher education and fulfilling careers. But this positive change has had repercussions on our society. Many people don't have the time to entertain like their predecessors. They don't want things that require a lot of work. China and crystal require hand washing, silver requires hand washing and polishing. That's just not realistic for many modern families. How about architecture? Have you considered this one? Younger families are looking for homes with open concept and less formal living. These trends are not really good for a lot of the things that my clients are looking to downsize. And then there's vastly different ideas about how to spend disposable income. For older generations, a home, and a well-appointed home, was a big part of what wealth looked like. It looked like stability. For younger generations, it's different. Wealth is defined by experiences, fine dining, concerts, traveling. After all, what looks more interesting on your Instagram feed? Your new secretary desk? Or your pictures at sunset on Waikiki during your Hawaiian vacation? So there. That's a glimpse at why the demand side is so low. There are other factors, but we'll keep it to that for now. So here's your first pro tip. I want you to do your research. Talk to people who know about selling used home goods. There are tons of great articles and books out there. Educate yourself on the current state of the resale market so you're not surprised. Because here's the reality. No matter how many times people hear this, they just don't think it applies to them. Just the other day, I gave a presentation to a group of people moving into independent living at a care community. I gave a version of this talk. After the talk, a woman came up to me and said, "I know what you just said. I heard it, but my stuff is really valuable." She proceeded to tell me she has a house full of furniture from a very nice furniture manufacturer. No names here, no judgments. I might do that later in another video. And I want you to know that this furniture maker is a nice brand. They make good stuff. But this manufacturer is also a mass producer and a mass distributor. In all likelihood, she will be disappointed. Okay, so you're considering what I've said, but you're not 100% sure that you believe me. I want to warn you for some of the mistakes that I know that I see my clients make, and I'm going to talk to you about the 5 false prophets of profit. The first false prophet is something we hear from many clients. It sounds like this. I saw this item on eBay or someplace like Craigslist, a consignment store, wherever, and they were asking good money. I'm so happy because my items must be worth good money too because I saw it on eBay, Craigslist, whatever. If you're looking at a retail or asking price, it's the first false prophet. A listing or retail price is simply the price someone is asking you for it. That's it. If I list this t-shirt on eBay for $100, it doesn't mean anyone will buy it, but I can ask. The prices on previously owned goods are often up for negotiation no matter where they're offered for sale. Number 2, we will often hear clients say something like, this person, fill in the blank who that person could be, says this is worth good money. Unless that person has specific industry experience and that experience is current, that may be not true. The person giving pricing advice needs to be in the industry currently, otherwise the advice is really of little value. This also is true when the advice came from a long time ago. We might hear clients say something like, my parents said I should hold on to this because it would be valuable one day. That may have been true when the advice was given, but it often doesn't reflect our current marketplace. And let me just say a quick word about those companies who produced items in limited quantities and told you that those items would be an investment one day. Well, one man's version of limited quantity and another man's version of limited quantity are often completely different. Many of those were mass produced and many of them have little value now. So here's your pro tip. Only listen to current professionals to determine the value of something. Using other sources often leads to false hope, and worse, those false hopes end up eating valuable time as a person looks for an unrealistic price for their things. Third false prophet of profit sounds like this, but I paid good money for that. Meaning that this item can't possibly be worth little money because I paid good money. Yes, you did. But that's what economists call a sunk cost. You have spent that money. There's nothing you can do about that. That ship had sailed. All you can do now is manage what you have now. Hopefully you enjoyed that item since you paid good money for it. Most people do not buy their household goods as an investment. Assuming you didn't, know that your money was well spent for your personal use or enjoyment and move on. Fourth false prophet of profit. This is a good item, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And with a little bit of work, fill in the blank, whatever that kind of work is, repair, refinish, reupholster, it could be great. Or right along the same lines, I saw on, say, Pinterest or a show how someone took an item like this and turned it into a bar, coffee table, whatever, fill in the blank, and it was worth really good money. In both these cases, there has been a big investment in labor, and labor is expensive. Have you priced out reupholstering or refinishing lately? Oof. You're assuming that the buyer either has the time or the ability to do the repair or can afford that labor. The only way these projects make sense is when the item is bought for pennies, making the labor worthwhile. So here's your pro tip. Unless you can put that labor required in, having this conversation with yourself is pointless. And just a warning, in many cases, items requiring repair are not even suitable for donation. I know you don't like that. I know it feels wasteful, but again, understand the labor and the cost of the labor that's involved. Last one, false prophet number 5. This is a real antique. Many people think old means money. But that's a myth. It's a myth that's been perpetuated by many years and many people, but it's a myth nonetheless. Some older furniture has retained its value, but very few pieces have. I'm going to do a whole video on why it's happened and how to understand what items can be valuable. But for now, know the basics. Just because it's old does not mean it has value. Have my 5 false prophets of profit totally depressed you? I hope not. I hope this is only a reality check to what you already know and giving you information to empower you so you understand what you already have heard. So let's get practical. Here are my 4 pro tips on how to find out how much your stuff is really worth. Number 1, if you're going to look up prices on eBay, I don't want you to look at the asking prices, but instead the sold prices. To do this, go to the eBay homepage. In the upper right corner, there's a button labeled Advanced. Once you're in the advanced search screen, there'll be a bunch of different choices, but select the button that says sold and rerun your search. Now you'll have a better idea of what things are actually selling for. My next pro tip, there's a website called liveauctioneers.com. That's live, L-I-V-E, auctioneers, plural.com. You have to join the site, but you don't have to pay. And once you've joined, you can look at past auction history. The more specific the item, the easier it is to do the search, but I've searched the database for general things and it worked too. This is another way to get a more realistic idea of the market. Here's my 3rd pro tip. Be careful using my first 2 pro tips because neither eBay sales results nor the sales result from live auctioneers are the full answer. They're just a ballpark. The most important issue with any item in the resale market is condition. In real estate, you'll hear people say location, location, location. Well, in the resale market, it's condition, condition, condition. The normal bumps, scratches, and marks that happen with any of our household items have a huge impact on pricing. And you're going to have to take off your rose-colored glasses and look at your stuff how it really is. A little dimple on your dining room table, little bump, your grandson was using their first big kid glass and he dropped it, little dent, you remember it fondly. The resale market only sees it as a negative. The resale market wants nearly perfect. The less perfect, the less money. Sometimes there's not a buyer for it at all. My 4th pro tip, limit the amount of time that you spend looking this up. You could spend hours on eBay and live auctioneers, and you might think you're working on your downsizing, but downsizing is action, not research. So if you're going to do research, pick a handful of items, 10 or 12 tops. And my last pro tip, what you really need is qualified, reliable people to sell your belongings, whether that's auction, consignment, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I'm going to talk about that in future videos. If you're really feeling out of your league, trying to find reliable sales sources, consider turning to a professional downsizer. Now, I'm going to talk in the future about how to find them, but I will say that we have a network of people that we work with, that we trust, so that may be an option for you. Okay, so that's monetize your downsize. It means we can move on to number 7 of the 8 biggest mistakes, and that's itemize your downsize. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're watching and know someone who would benefit from the information but does not normally watch YouTube, please be sure to help direct them to our channel. And remember, the start to any long journey begins with one small step, so take that first step. And thank you so much for watching.